Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bo Neiman's Bogus Hangout. And have our guests introduce themselves. Doc?
Hello, everybody. Doc Sheldon here of Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central. I'm standing in as curmudgeon of the day because Terry couldn't make it today.
Steve Grinch, Steam-driven media, and sure, why not? Sounds like a plan. Let's all argue with each other. That'll be fun.
Good, every topic. I'm Bill Slawski. I'm the author of SEO by the Sea and the director of SEO research for Go Fish Digital. So, have you guys heard that PageRank has been replaced? There was a news thread that some search engineer from Google, he'd done it for 5 years or so, said that Google had replaced PageRank in 2006 with something that was also known as PageRank. And
Is this the same guy that's pitching his certification program?
No. This is a guy who actually has 5.5 years of working at Google showing on LinkedIn, as opposed to a year and a half as a janitor or cook or something.
Yeah.
Search quality, Bubba.
Yeah.
And I had not heard that particular one, no.
He was an actual search engineer. Barry Schwartz wrote up an article about it.
I certainly can believe that PageRank has evolved a lot, probably playing a much smaller role now, but I have a hard time imagining that they've totally abandoned it.
Well, you remember Matt Cutts wrote an article a number of years ago saying the PageRank that they originally came out with and the PageRank that they actually implemented weren't exactly too much alike.
Yeah, radically different.
Yeah.
Well, we know that now rankings are so liquid, depending upon all sorts of different factors, that matching a document to a query is such a fluid thing. I would have to question how viable it is to assign an arbitrary PageRank value to a page. I mean, you'd almost have to have 50 different PageRank values, depending upon what the query is, where it came from, who's doing it, what's the context is, what's the query classification. The PageRank would have to differ.
Some types of pages don't have much value once they've started accruing links, like news stories, which are ideally fresh. You don't want to read yesterday's news 3 weeks from now. Real-time search results. Somebody tweets that there's an earthquake going on in Southern California. You don't want to see that a month from now, especially if you could be hiding under a desk. I mean, that was my first impression the first time I found myself in an earthquake, and I had Twitter open. So it was in Virginia rather than California, and a can of beans fell off a shelf. So the damages weren't too big from my home, but it took place like 60 miles south of me. And I made the mistake of driving through the town later that week. And as I'm driving down Main Street in the town, I noticed a sign that says nuclear reactor facility.
Ooh.
So I said, maybe this wasn't too good of an idea to drive down here.
Yeah, you might want a detour on that one.
Yeah. So there was a hardware store with one side of it held up by 2x4s, but it had a crowd of people, cars lined up, people buying plywood and bricks for chimneys to replace and things like that. So there had to have been some damage in the area.
Yeah.
But those types of stories, they don't have time to accrue links. So they're not going to rank too highly. If they were ranked on the basis of something like PageRank.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Matt saying that, and it certainly made a lot of sense then, and it probably makes even more sense now. But to totally toss the concept of PageRank out the window seems unlikely. I suspect it's got to be a fraction, carries a fraction of the importance it used to. Everything's done on the fly. A query is matched to a document now in the moment.
If you use Google Search Console and you make updates to a page and you submit the URL for that page, changes to titles, to meta descriptions, to rankings take place within minutes.
Yeah, instantaneously, yeah.
It's reminding me of when you used to submit URL by URL to AltaVista.
Yep.
So don't know. I've tried adding some internal PageRank to some pages to see if those would influence rankings using Google Search Console, and I haven't noticed that making a difference.
Well, we do see that you can kind of, pass internal value, from a highly ranking page to internal pages. Yeah. So there's some sort of a factor there, whether you could call that authority or credibility or EAT or whatever. It's something can be somehow funneled, sculpted, if you want to really go back a couple of years. There is a certain ability to do that. Whether it's called PageRank or not, who knows?
It just doesn't seem to have the immediate impact that changing content on a page might.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not nearly as quick.
But it was worth trying to see. So I do remember there was another time where Matt made an announcement that a well-known link analysis approach used at Google was being canceled. They were stopping using it. And he didn't give any more information than that. That was like in 2012. So that wasn't PageRank.
Just shortly before he left. Yeah. Which, as an aside, God, I miss Matt.
So I like what John Mueller's doing. I haven't met him in person. I do like what he's doing. I think Gary tends to be a little bit too sarcastic. Yeah, that was the Fred update. Why Fred? Because I have a fish named Fred. Because I call everything Fred.
Yeah, and of course that grew feet and became the mantra of the day. Yeah, I like what John's doing too. He sometimes just like with Matt, you had to sometimes pay as much attention or more to what he didn't say or how he didn't say it as to what he was actually saying. And I think the same is true with John. Matt was just on top of his game. I mean, he thought on his feet how he responded to things so well. And John, I think, sometimes has to play it off the cuff a little bit more and doesn't.
But as John once said, and he said, a lot of things I answer are within a certain context.
Sure.
Unless you listen for that context, don't rely upon what I say without hearing that first.
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference.
Well, so how many times have we seen a question asked that he'll respond to, and then people will take that answer as being an answer to an entirely different question or a much broader question. He gets misquoted a lot. Not misquoted. I mean, what he said is precisely what they quoted, but the intent was entirely different.
The context isn't there.
Yeah, they just reading comprehension skills, I suppose, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Some people just don't. They hear what they want to hear, confirmation bias or whatever, or they just aren't listening, and a lot of times they're attributing meanings to his responses that aren't there. And with Gary, you've got to take it all with a grain of salt, because you never know when he's just being Gary and just being a wise ass and blindly confident in the fact that we all have enough intelligence to realize he's being sarcastic, and that's obviously not the case.
Sometimes people will ask me a question in Twitter, and I'll respond, well, there was a Google patent that came out a couple of years ago that said this and this and that. And they'll ask me as if I'm like a Google employee, why'd they choose that? And it's like, I don't know. So I don't work for Google.
Not too long ago, just a week or two ago, I responded to somebody's rather silly question in a group on Facebook about some obscure, nonsensical thing being a factor, and I said, "Yeah, that's almost as important as keyword density."
Yeah.
And two people lit into me. God, you got to be kidding! Surely you don't still believe that keyword density is get a life.
So I did a tirade on Twitter about TF-IDF and a search engine land article last week.
Yeah, I saw that.
And the article pointed out that one page outranked Moz tremendously on a SEO-related topic for a query, what does SEO stand for? The Moz page didn't even include the word stand. It's like, okay, so Google has this relevance requirement. If the page doesn't have the words, it's not going to rank for that. So I had all these people saying, but that doesn't mean TF-IDF doesn't work. I said, in this instance, it means that when the term frequency is 0, TF-IDF works fine. It's showing that the page isn't relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell me you can use TF-IDF to rank that page when you just need to add the word to the page. So I had people trying to start arguments with me over the value of TF-IDF. It's like, I'd rather take a nap, thanks.
Well, we do love our buzzwords.
And it's funny when people try to instigate and create arguments so they can sit there and watch them while eating popcorn.
You know what I find entertaining and interesting is the fact that this is the first time, since I got into digital marketing, it's the first time when I found myself working in a field where there's a certain element of doubt or question about precisely what your guidelines are. When I was working as an engineer, it was pretty plain and simple. There's math, there's physics, there's regulations and codes, and it was all pretty much cut and dried. The same with you as an attorney. If you work in court, you've got precedent and you've got laws, and there's not a whole lot of room for interpretation, at least on your side of the table. Maybe on the bench, but not for you. And this is the first time I'm having to work in a field that is largely open to interpretation. That can vary dramatically, and it's sometimes discouraging, but it's also usually entertaining. How people will focus on something that may or may not have any validity, to the point of almost religiously adhering to it. You know, I get involved in these threads where somebody is making absolute statements, and absolute statements have always driven me nuts because there are very few absolutes. You know,
Yeah.
We're born, we die, we pay taxes. Pretty much everything else is a maybe. And they'll say something like, the only way you got to rank is with PBNs. No, it's not. You know, and then they'll make this absolute statement. I just go off. You know, How do you say something like that? The only way? You think Amazon is using PBNs? You think Wikipedia is using PBNs? You know, that's a stupid statement to make. And you know, I go off on them like Steve would, and I end up making all kinds of friends and losing a few.
Sometimes you have clients who study their competitors and see them doing something, and then suggest that you do it too.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, they had one who studied their competitors' sitemap, and they saw that they had categorized the sitemap by topic, and believed that their competitor was getting an advantage by the fact that those were arranged by topic, and they wanted theirs arranged by topic too. And I told them no, it wasn't going to make a difference, and I refused to do it.
Well, I know Steve is a little bit more financially successful than I am, so I'm going to paint my back wall metallic copper too. Obviously, that's the major factor.
Well, that's it. Now, generally, when I have clients that do stupid shit like that, and I got in the habit of this, is I would tell them no and explain to them why. And if they insisted I do it anyway, I did it anyway and charged them double.
There you go.
And that solves the problem. Mm-hmm. Because now I'm happy. I'm more than happy to waste my time for you at this rate.
I had a friend who's practicing law, and if he had clients who wanted to do things he didn't like doing, he would charge them a multiplier.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you finally get sick of certain types of cases, like doing family law. So I had built his website. So I said, well, we can take that page about family laws on your website, and we could replace it. What do you want to do, corporate law? He said, yeah. So, okay. So that brought in new traffic, new business. He had attorneys from other states sending him documents based on Delaware law, and he would review the documents to make sure it complied with Delaware law. And he enjoyed that much better than divorcing people.
Yeah. No, there are times where I refuse to do things just because I know they're wrong.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I had one, well, I shouldn't say one. I've had a couple that used to send me links to threads on places like Warrior Forum. And it's like, please stop reading this. You're out of the 1,000 people that post there, one might know what he's talking about.
Well, it's kind of like I've had a client send you a link to some Neil Patel blog post as justification. Yeah. No. I'm sorry. My monitor has been Patelized. It will not display any of his pages.
Yeah. I've got one that still sends me, he forwards me his SEO newsletter that he gets every week. Whatever. I don't even know where it comes from, but I read through like the first two, articles, and it's like, okay, yeah, we don't need this anymore in our lives. And it now has a rule, and I never see it. It goes straight to the trash.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. I want my clients to be educated. It makes it easier to talk to them and explain things. But at a certain point, you have to also they also need to know when to let go and just let you work.
I've been given by people audits from previous SEOs who they've worked with. Mm-hmm. And I've found myself telling people I won't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those audits are really questionable.
Well, that's a very charitable way of putting it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is like, I've got one client that I'm working with right now. Their sales are down, I don't know, maybe 20% over last year.
Yeah.
And they're convinced that it was these things. This is why sales are down. It's a combination of new website and the salespeople suck and all this other stuff. And I did a lot more digging and noticed that the actual number of people searching for that product is down like 50%. It's like, look, you should be thankful you're not down 50% at this point because of these, this is what we're seeing in the data as far as impressions in AdWords. We're not, the impressions are off by 50% for year over year. And it's like, last year they were, pardon me?
You can sometimes look at things like Google Trends and see that the keywords they've chosen have lost searcher interest.
And, so it's like, last year you had, for the month of June, you had 10,000 impressions and 1,500 clicks. Well, this year, you've only had like 4,000 impressions and like 800 clicks. It's like, so percentage wise, you're taking much more of the market share. It's just the market reduced itself dramatically for some reason. Why is that? And we got to having that discussion, and they're like, "Oh, well, so and so just came out with a new product around, April. That's like the next version." And it's like, well, okay, why didn't you tell me this 3 months ago? Well, we like selling what we're selling, and it's like, I get that, but if somebody else is selling something newer and better, how did you expect to maintain your market share? I love them. I love them dearly, but good Lord, the numbers tell you so much.
That's
one they should have possibly saw coming.
I saw an interesting paper a couple of weeks ago from some, I believe, Austrian, maybe German marketer, and it was basically an opinion piece. But he had lived in several different countries in Europe. He had lived in the States and Canada and traveled tremendously through his career. And basically he said the problem is that in Europe, we tend to be data oriented. We look for evidence and we look for a path that is supported by the data. And he says, and Americans are emotionally driven. So trying to sell to an American market is so iffy. You can be tremendously successful peddling dog turds, or you can totally fail being the only source for oxygen, based upon the emotional response to your methods and your product and client recommendations or reviews and whatnot. He says, I would much rather sell in a European market because you can deal with data.
In kickoff meetings with clients, I bring up the concept of emerging technology. What do they have on a back burner that they're planning on introducing that might change things? What might their competitors have?
How often do you get a blank stare, Bill?
When I explain what I mean, they understand. They say, what things are potentially putting your business at risk? Might your competitor come out with something that replaces what you're selling that people might like better?
But have you found that a lot of them might not have actually given much thought to it until you brought it up?
I've found that when I ask lots of questions about business planning and so on, most of them say, I haven't thought of that before.
Yeah, I believe that.
Well, it's a good time to think about it when you're, especially the ones who are just sort of starting out.
Certainly a lot more enjoyable to think about it before the fact rather than in retrospect.
Have either of you noticed more people wanting non-disclosure agreements than ever before?
No.
I mean, I haven't.
I am seeing more of them being aware of, and although somewhat ignorant, at least questioning about GDPR requirements for clients that actually have some offshore business interests. But in terms of NDAs, no, I really. In fact, I think I'm seeing a little bit less than I was 5 years ago.
Maybe it's just the market that I've been in lately, especially on the Amazon side. A lot of people won't even talk to you about hiring you for marketing without an NDA.
I think it's been probably a year since the last time I was asked for one before discussing the project. I usually, once I get around to closing a deal, I offer to send them. I have a standard boilerplate NDA that I send out, and I usually send that along with my quotation. But it's been a while since I've actually had one requested. In fact, I think the last time I was actually requested for one was when you and I worked together on Cornell.
Yeah.
That was they would not accept my boilerplate. They wanted me to use theirs. Okay. They paid some guy 5 figures to write it up. I suppose that makes sense. They want to justify that expense.
Maybe I just don't have that trustworthy look.
That's it. You got the beady little eyes.
Mm-hmm. I always got a kick out of visiting the Googleplex and the machine that they have that you insert your name and it prints out a 19-page long non-disclosure agreement. And
wow.
You don't have time to read it before you tour the place.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk about anything here.
It's like, I think the last time before just recently that I had somebody want me to sign an NDA was for a product they were working on, but they wouldn't tell me what niche it was in, or, I mean, it was, we want to talk to you about this wonderful idea we have for a new product. It's going to be amazing, but you have to sign this NDA before we talk about anything. It's like, well, I can't sign that. And I'm like, why not? It's like, well, what if your idea is old and stupid and I already know it? Now I'm bound by your NDA? I don't think so. And last I heard, that was 3-4 years ago, and they still haven't launched. So apparently it's such a secret idea that they don't even let customers know about it.
Maybe it was stupid. You might have been. You might have been prescient, Steve.
I joined a startup company, and they were working on software to generate pay-per-click keywords. And when I found out the methods behind what they're doing, I cautioned them about going forward with it, because it was using latent semantic indexing to generate those keywords. And
I think I just heard David Harry twitch.
I cautioned them that pulled the trigger with some SEOs who considered that approach akin to snake oil.
Quackery.
They might want to reconsider. They ended up not using that approach.
Yeah, and invent a different initialism.
Yeah. Come up with a new name.
What strikes me as odd are the people who are selling products that aren't latent semantic indexing, but they're calling them latent semantic indexing LSA keywords. It doesn't use LSA.
Yeah. Well, what about all the people who are selling, AI-backed whatever?
Yeah.
It's none of it's AI-backed.
Nope.
A lot of them have
Some
no,
of them,
a lot of them have no clue what AI is.
Well, even in our own communities, we see a hell of a lot of people that conflate AI with machine learning. There's very little understanding of the difference.
well, I know there was the one company, they had their new AI-driven copywriting service, and basically it was just another article spinner. The
Yeah.
only difference was it went through an editor with whose third language was English, which is impressive that they know English. They know 3 languages, but it's like, come on, guys.
Sort of 10,000 monkeys at typewriters, and one of them will come up with Shakespeare at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's the level of your AI, it needs work.
Apparently, there's already an SEO certification program out there. Somebody linked to it in a Facebook group. They're based out of South Africa. Yeah.
Link?
I didn't even click the link. I probably should have.
Well, that sounds entertaining for the afternoon. You share that link.
Yeah. Just to see what's out there. I mean, I never know anymore. It's just sad. But it's a side effect of the industry having a few decades of maturity and no barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
And people trying to sell standards programs without understanding how to set standards and how independent parties outside of the industry should be involved in some way. So you have no conflicts of interest.
Until Google comes out with their own certification program, I have no interest because they're the only one that actually knows what the rules are.
Yep.
The rest of us can make a pretty good educated guess, but in the end, that's all it is a guess.
There's a question about Google being the appropriate body to do that, mainly because they make their money selling advertisements.
Yeah, there needs to be some independent review for sure.
Well, there's no independent review on any Microsoft certification or any Novell certification or any of the 1,000 other certifications that are out there. There's no independent verification of any of that.
Well, and it's not unreasonable for Microsoft or Google to say that we certify that this individual has shown proficiency with our guidelines, our directives, our system, whatever. And that's not unreasonable. It's just that it shouldn't be considered to be a universal standard. It's not an SEO standard. It's a Google standard or a Microsoft standard. So do you have to then go get a certification for Yahoo and Bing and Yandex and Google all independently? Well, possibly. If you're going to work at all of those, you probably would need to. But I don't think that it's really extraordinary that Microsoft would be able to certify you on their Office suite or their webmaster standards, their guidelines.
Well, I just did a quick search for SEO certification, and somebody's got a knowledge box for it.
Oh, really?
Oh, click-minded, whoever that is. They got
That
they got a
rings a bell.
knowledge box for it. And the top ad is geo-targeted for my old hometown that's 700 miles away.
Okay, now I come up with a knowledge box for SEOforbeginners.com.
Interesting.
So I should try to search.
But click-minded is the #1 organic result, even though they don't get a knowledge box. Which in itself is a little rare, but not unheard of.
No knowledge box, but I'm getting people also ask questions.
Interesting.
Yeah. ClickMind is the top organic result. How do I get SEO certified? How to become SEO certified without a certificate?
wait a minute. Run that by me again. How do you get certified without a certificate?
How to become SEO certified without a certificate? It's from the Stone Temple article.
Oh, Lordy.
Mm-hmm.
How to become a surgeon without going to medical school?
What is the best SEO certification?
I wonder how many of these logos they're using on their website are approved of by the people whose logos they're using as proof that they are good at what they do.
Is it click-minded?
Yeah.
You know, I saw an interesting court case the other day, by the way. This guy was a building consultant, architectural consultant.
Yeah.
And he was being sued by some client because he was using their logo and an image of their, a photo of their facility and their logo and their business name on his website. And so they sued him. They sent him a cease and desist. He blew him off, so they filed a lawsuit. And his whole premise was that because he said in his contract that we reserve the right to use these things, and they signed the contract, that was therefore authorization. For some strange reason, the judge disagreed.
Because there are specific laws about endorsements.
Uh-huh. Well, that not just that, but the fact that, basically the fact that you say that I'm going to do these things, and by, by visiting my webpage or by signing this contract, you're in agreement with this, does not necessarily mean that,
Right.
You can say anything. Whether you can enforce it or not is an entirely different question.
A court will consider some contracts unconscionable, especially if they have clauses on the back of the contracts in tiny print.
Yeah.
That most people don't bother to read.
Well, it's like non-compete clauses in employment contracts are more often unenforceable than enforceable.
In places like California, yeah.
Yeah, they're there to intimidate, and they generally have that effect.
Yeah.
They generally do avoid the issue, but they're not enforceable.
They create a chilling effect on employment.
Mm-hmm.
That is often the language that a judge will use, ruling against them. So we want people employed. We don't want to scare people away from jobs.
That's like having all the software licensing embedded inside the shrink wrap, where you don't have a chance to read it before you open it.
Yeah.
Gee. Or my other favorite one is the people who put the little blurb at the bottom of their emails saying that this is a protected email, and and all this stuff. It's like, well, no, that does not apply because it's at the bottom of the email. You've already read the email before you get to that clause. Those have been thrown over and over again. They get thrown out. People keep doing them.
Have you seen billboards with tiny print on them?
No, that one I have not seen.
It's like somebody will say something, then they'll have a disclaimer under it in tiny print, and it's like someone driving down the road is going to read that. No, it's unlikely. If they're doing 60 miles an hour down the road, they're not going to read your tiny print. So at worst, you're potentially causing accidents.
Mm-hmm.
At best, there is no at best. And I have seen at least a couple of those. I think I could have crashed both times because I was laughing so hard. So wondering who would have thought that was a good idea.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to the day of like the blipverts from Max Headroom. Where they,
I miss Max.
I do too.
Yeah,
you can blast all that into your head in a blink of an eye.
Always entertaining.
So I'm looking forward to the billboards in stores from Minority Report that start talking to you about your last purchases.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you can already do that for the most part. The technology is already in place.
Yeah.
It's just getting people not to freak out when it happens to them. That's the hard part.
Well, we see that Apple has face lock capability. So they've had facial recognition down. So that could be used in a store type setting.
Well, I read, was it last week, where they were using facial recognition to identify people with criminal backgrounds or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had misidentification rate was over 60%. I mean, it was ridiculous how bad the misidentification was. It was in a big public setting. I'm trying to remember where it was now. I shared a link on Facebook. That's where it's going to cause problems, where the recognition's basing on just partial views and not a full face view. And so if you've got people who look reasonably similar, it just makes a guess instead of defaulting to not enough data to make an, there should be a threshold built into the system that says, hey, there's no confidence in these results. And my guess is that's not the way that works. Same thing with drug dogs. It's so easy to signal a drug dog to hit when it doesn't smell anything. I don't trust any of them.
Really? So those dogs I see at the airport with the sign saying "Do not pet"?
Yeah. The dog will hit on narcotics, when it smells narcotics or gunpowder or whatever it's trained to sniff, but it will also hit with a hand signal. And the hand signals can be super subtle. And if they bring a dog to your car and they want to search your car, that dog will hit.
Yep.
Regardless of whether anything's in your car or not, because the dog will get the signal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I know police in certain departments in canine units that have done that.
May or may not have, right?
May or may not have, where it's like, we know this guy's done something bad and we need a reason.
And this is
I'm-
probable cause.
And I had one. I used to work nights at Domino's, so I would go home at 3 a.m. And I'm in an open top Jeep wearing a flannel shirt and a baseball cap, and get the, where are you going? That way.
Yeah.
Where have you been? That way. Can I search your vehicle? No. It's an open Jeep. Where are you going to search? It's like, well, that, refusing to let me search your vehicle gives me probable cause to search your vehicle.
Not wrong.
Like, you may think that. But if you want to go ahead and make a deal out of it, we'll go ahead and make a deal.
We can test that theory, but you're going to be a very sad cookie.
I lived in a college town on the East Coast and thought it might be a good idea to start getting up early in the morning and go running. Until the first morning I tried, and I saw a bunch of police cars out. I said, this may not be that good of an idea. They see me run a police car, they may tackle me and call that probable cause.
Well, what are you running from? You.
Yeah. And I think I have seen police officers make the argument that somebody was running away from them, so they must have been up to something. So,
Or if he's running towards them, he might be trying to attack them. Oh, he's brown. He's definitely trying to attack me.
What a scary, scary world.
mhm.
And getting more so rather than less so.
This is why I like living out here where I live. I know every single cop, if not by name, at least by face.
Yeah.
They all know my vehicles. They know my dad's vehicles, and he's only here twice a year for a couple of weeks at a time. I mean,
When I was living out in the sticks in Texas, I was the same way. I really loved it because I knew everybody. I was friends with the local sheriff. I knew the drug dealers, and I knew the cops. And I knew who to stay away from and who to stay close to. And
The town I lived in Virginia was very safe. Everybody was a card-carrying member of the National Rifle Association.
there you go.
yeah.
If you didn't happen to be packing, one of your buddies would be nearby, and he was. Yeah, I found out that when I was living out there, I was 50 miles out of Austin, and I found out that over a period of just a few months, an awful lot of shit was going down that I was totally insulated from and never aware of.
Yeah.
And which ended up causing some problems, But so it's kind of a mixed game, Being out in the sticks has definitely got some pluses to it, but you gotta make sure you're not in that bubble too. Yeah, I know you're not. I mean, it's easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
We've got areas out here where, as you come into town, they stop you and ask you if you're carrying a gun, and if you say no, they give you one.
Here, want to buy one? Yeah.
Oh, no, everybody here packs. Here's yours.
Yeah, so it bothered me a little bit when I first heard about it, but I've grown to like the idea. So police officers in my town all have cameras that are always on.
Yeah.
So that every interaction they have with people is filmed.
Yep. You have to. And what's funny is, again, I have a lot of cop friends, just like Doc does, and most of them I know want the cameras because it exonerates them far more than it incriminates them.
Yeah.
It's like, no, here's the video, here's the footage. The officer was completely kind and polite, and the woman in the car was batshit crazy, right up to the point we stunned her. She calmed down real quick after that third taser hit.
Tough old bird.
What'd you have to do? this for?
I've been,
Well,
I've been
watch the
tased.
footage.
I'll tell you what, if anybody that can actually live up to the third one is a tough old bird to deal with, because the second one put me in a very, very submissive mood. I mean, at that point, I was like, "Oh, you want me to swallow too? No problem." Yeah.
No problem. I am your new bestest buddy. I will lay here and do whatever.
We had, when I went through the academy in Virginia, our instructor, one of our instructors of various courses, was the guy that taught us search techniques, and he had also taught us submission techniques. Okay, and he was good. I mean, he was into that. I forget what it's called now, the Brazilian style martial arts. Casero or something like that, but he was also into karate and jujitsu and taekwondo and aikido, and he knew about 16 different kinds of ways to make you wish you were dead. Yeah. And he had made us. We played a little game in submission course where we had a like a rock paper scissors type thing where whether you were going to get stuck taking a second taser hit or not, and he swore up and down, "I'm going to get you, Campbell. I'm going to get you. You're going to get it twice." And by a stroke of pure luck, I skated out, and he didn't get to get me twice. So about 6 weeks later, we're going through the search techniques, and he of course had his taser on his belt, and he told me to he was using me as a subject to spread my legs, have me up against the wall with the hands on the wall, and told me to step back and spread my legs. And I didn't do it quite fast enough, so he stepped back and tased me right in the middle of the back. And just, I immediately slammed my face into the wall deliberately, just to distract myself, I guess. But and he just stood back laughing. He says, "I told you last month I was going to get you." But I tell you, that was that's not fun. And the old ones, the contact, where you've actually got the two probes that a lot of these gals carry in their purse. Yeah. They're less debilitating than the ones the cops carry that deploy, but they're a lot more painful. I mean, they friggin' hurt. Like a couple of daggers. They really hurt. They just don't have the same lasting effect. I get a kick out of it though when I see somebody deploy and then they just stand back and keep popping that trigger 6 or 8 times until you stop twitching. And then okay, he's subdued.
Yeah.
No, he's not subdued. He's fucking straight line. He's flat line, man.
Yeah, I'm reminded of when I worked for the courts in Delaware, and I walked past a jury room where the jurors would come in for jury duty, and it was after the time when all of them would have left, and I hear a help from the jury room. So nobody else was there to help but me, so I decided to go in and see what was happening, and a prisoner was trying to escape. And he had a police officer and a Capitol police officer and a sheriff trying to put handcuffs on him. And the sheriff had taken a low blow, and the Capitol police officer was having no luck at all with the handcuffs. So I sat down on top of the guy and pushed his arms together so she could put handcuffs on him. And he was mad. He was yelling at us. He was going to press charges against us.
Sure. Years and years and years ago, I used to work a retail store, and you were allowed back then. You were allowed to, if you caught somebody, to detain them until the police showed up. And we didn't have handcuffs. We had shackles. We had about 18 inches of chain between them because we didn't want to have, because. And this big guy, we tried to get him, and we got one hand on him, got one hand shackled, and could not push his arms together enough to get the other one on him. And he ran out. He was running out through the back of the store, back in through the loading dock area. And one of the guys managed to get a hold of him just long enough to clip him to one of the overhead doors.
Yeah.
And he started yanking and pulling on the door. So somebody reached over and hit the button and ran that door up to the ceiling and let that guy hanging by his wrist. It's like,
that'll work.
You're going to calm down. I'll let you down. He goes, yeah, I'll calm down. And as soon as his feet touched the ground, he started pulling and tugging again. It's like, nope, right back up you go. And about 2 minutes later, the cops showed up and they just stood there and laughed. Like, well, oh, he was mad. That guy was so mad. And it's like, dude, all this drama over something so stupid. It's like, and it wasn't even like that because we didn't normally press charges. We just wanted them out of the store and we wanted them to leave the stuff. But when they start fighting, we're going to press charges.
Yeah. When they're trying to escape from being sentenced in a courthouse,
yeah,
that's a felony in and of itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when you're in custody, basically anything you do is a felony. If you're trying to resist or get away or escape, yeah, you're pretty much adding 10 years on right there.
Any action you take against police officers when you're doing that is a felony too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I don't think I was protected as a court employee, but
well, it depends on the jurisdiction. I know, it used to be this way in California. I don't know if it still is, and I know it's still this way in Texas. If you as a citizen are walking down the street, you see a police officer, let's say he's trying to subdue somebody and he's losing the battle, and you step in and help, you're protected. You're, as a citizen, assisting, and as long as you follow any directions that officer gives you. If he tells you back off, then you better back off. But if you're assisting a police officer or a fireman or a paramedic, any public service official, then you're protected from, you're held harmless, so you don't have to worry about getting sued.
I was in one of the situations and the police officer told me to back off, so I did.
Yeah.
But,
and they usually will, unless they know you, they usually will, because they don't need somebody else in there getting next to their holster. I've had that same situation, or I just stepped in to help a guy. He had the guy down, face down, but he couldn't control him. And I just stepped in there, grabbed one arm, and put my knee on the back of his neck. And the officer took advantage of the opportunity to get a hold of his other wrist and told me to back off.
Yeah.
Very forcefully. Back off. Okay, I understand.
And I may have heard on more than one occasion somebody yell, "This is police brutality," and somebody else yelled, "But I'm not a cop." There's that side of that.
No, this is citizen brutality.
I know so many bad, horrible cop jokes. I'm sure Doc knows more than a few too.
I may have been the butt of a couple of them. I know I think I've told you before, my boy's a detective in Texas for a medium-sized city municipal force. And I don't know, now last time I saw him, he was probably running about 320. So when he felt it necessary to run somebody down, there was a good chance there was going to be a viable charge of brutality involved, because he's not fond of running. And once he finally catches you, he's going to take it out on your ass.
That's what tasers with very long leads are for.
When he catches, and he's unbelievably quick for somebody his size. He can run down a spindly little 18-year-old kid if he has to. But when he gets there, you're going to go down hard, and he's going to come down on top of you. And And about a 12-foot streak of
It's a
you is going to
later-
be left attached to the top of the sidewalk. By the way, to both of you, James Morris just said to tell you both hi. I was chatting with him elsewhere.
Hey, James. Well, we're at the top of the hour, guys, so you call it a day. Thank you both for joining me. Thank you, everybody,
You bet.
for watching.
Have a good week.
Bye all.
Take care.